Sometimes the repeated alert is the story. The same TechCrunch headline kept coming back into our monitor today. The US banned Anthropic's Fable 5 release, but the numbers do not seem to care. At first glance, that looks like a duplicate. We already covered the shutdown. EP 133 was the government pulling the switch on Fable 5 and Mythos 5. But the reason this keeps mattering is that the story has changed shape. The availability question is only the surface. Under it is a harder question: whether frontier AI is becoming permissioned infrastructure, where launch rights depend on whether the government believes the risk is legible, measured, and contained. Anthropic says the US government issued an export control directive on June 12th that suspended access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 by foreign nationals, whether inside or outside the United States. Anthropic says the practical effect was that it had to disable both models for all customers to ensure compliance. That was the switch. Now the fight is moving to the rulebook. Business Insider, citing Politico reporting, says the White House and Anthropic are now working on a framework to assess the severity of security flaws in new AI models and guide possible government intervention. That is the next episode.
This is The Synthetic Lens. I'm David Carver. Marcus Chen is here. Marcus, reset this without turning it into a recap. What are Fable 5 and Mythos 5 in this story?
Anthropic split one frontier capability into two access paths. Fable 5 was the guarded public model. Mythos 5 was the more restricted version aimed at vetted cyber defenders and infrastructure providers. The premise was same frontier neighborhood, different levels of access and safeguards. Then the government stepped in. Anthropic says the directive was about foreign national access. It also says the letter did not explain the specific national security concern. Anthropic's understanding is that the issue involved a possible way to bypass Fable 5's safeguards.
And we now know more about where that concern came from.
We do, and it sharpens the irony. The reporting says the trigger was Amazon. Researchers at Amazon were able to circumvent some of Fable 5's anti-hacking guardrails, and Amazon's CEO reportedly warned Trump administration officials that the guardrails were flawed. Wired reports that Andy Jassy called Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent directly.
Sit with that for a second. Amazon is one of Anthropic's largest investors. The same week we are talking about a $65 billion funding round, a key backer is the actor whose security report helps pull the model. The accuser and the financier are inside the same tent.
And Anthropic disputes the severity.
Strongly. Anthropic says it reviewed the demonstration and found a small number of previously known minor vulnerabilities. It says other publicly available models could also find similar issues without any bypass. It says it has not received evidence of a harmful result or a Mythos-specific capability jump. The shape of the exploit matters. Anthropic describes it as a narrow, non-universal jailbreak that essentially consists of asking the model to read a specific codebase and fix any software flaws. Anthropic also says Fable safeguards were red-teamed for thousands of hours and that testers found no universal jailbreak that would strip the guardrails or reach Mythos-level capability. So the Mythos point matters. If the concern is Fable can be jailbroken into Mythos, then the government is treating a safeguard failure like an access control failure. Anthropic's answer is basically, you have not shown that the door opened in the way you think it did.
So the technical dispute becomes a policy dispute.
Exactly. A jailbreak is never just a yes or no label. What did the bypass allow? How reliable was it? Could another model do the same thing? Did the exploit require specialist knowledge? Did it produce actual harmful output or just demonstrate a theoretical path? Those are technical questions, but once model access depends on the answers, they become regulatory questions too.
Stan Rogers, bring in the White House side. What changed since the shutdown?
The reported shift is from emergency action to standard setting. Business Insider reports that the White House and Anthropic are working on a framework for judging security flaws in new AI models. The idea is to create benchmarks that could help decide when a flaw is serious enough for intervention. Pulling access creates pressure immediately, but it leaves the next question hanging. What would make a model safe enough to come back?
Is this a formal licensing system?
I would not call it formal, not from the public record we have. But I would call it a shadow license. If a lab cannot reliably launch or restore a frontier model without satisfying a government security judgment, then permission exists even if the paperwork is still informal. Wired's framing helps here. They report that Anthropic and the White House remained at odds after days of talks, and that the company does not believe it violated concrete procedures. The White House reportedly views the rollout as reckless, so the rule may be unwritten, but the consequence is real.
And that creates a precedent for other labs.
It does. If you are OpenAI, Google, Meta, xAI, Mistral, or any other frontier lab, the lesson is obvious. The government may not wait for a statute. It may act through export controls, procurement pressure, cloud access, national security letters, or informal pre-release expectations. You can hate that, you can defend it. Either way, it changes launch planning.
James Ophakar, security people are split here. Walk through the honest version.
The honest version starts with humility. No frontier model is jailbreak-proof. The reporting from Business Insider makes that explicit. The negotiations reportedly reflect an understanding that no model can be completely immune to hacking. A better question is, what happens when the model is bypassed? Give me the checklist. Capability first. What harmful task does the model become better at? Reliability second. Is the bypass a fragile demo, or does it work consistently? Access third. Who can reproduce it? A red team lab, a graduate student, a criminal group, a foreign intelligence service? Mitigation fourth. Can the provider patch it quickly, monitor abuse, or restrict only the risky pathway? Evidence fifth. Is the government acting on a tested exploit, a vendor report, a classified assessment, or a political fear? Those distinctions matter. If we flatten all jailbreaks into national security emergencies, then every frontier model becomes unlaunchable. If we ignore them, then safeguards become theater.
TechCrunch reported cybersecurity experts pushed back hard.
Yes, the open letter to Commerce Secretary Lutnick and National Cyber Director Cairncross urged the White House to lift the restrictions. As of Monday morning, it carried 76 signatures, and it kept climbing through the week, past 100 by midweek. So when we quote a number, we should timestamp it rather than freeze it. The direction of travel is the real signal. Support for lifting the ban grew. It did not fade. Their argument is that the ban takes the strongest models away from defenders who use them to find vulnerabilities and secure software. The signers say Mythos-class models are good at finding flaws, but are not uniquely good at it, and that other frontier models they use every day can do the same work. A defensive model can also be dual use, but if the response is to remove the model from legitimate defenders, attackers may still move to open models, leaked methods, or less regulated channels. The people trying to patch systems lose capability too. David, Marcus, that gets us to developers and enterprises. What do they learn from this week?
They learned that frontier AI is now a dependency with political failure modes. If your workflow depends on Fable 5 and it disappears overnight, the outage is not like a normal cloud incident. There may be no status page that fixes it. The constraint is law, nationality, model risk classification, and negotiation between a company and the state. That changes architecture. Teams will build fallbacks. They will second-source models. They will ask whether sensitive workloads should sit on a model that can be pulled because of a government dispute. They will ask whether open-weight alternatives are less capable but more controllable.
And the open model argument is not just a hunch now.
Right. The expert's own letter makes the point for me. The signers warn that Chinese open-weight models are only months behind the best American models, and that it is dangerous to keep the best capabilities from defenders while adversaries are advancing quickly.
That cuts two ways for an engineering team. It is an argument against the ban, but it is also a roadmap. When a dependency becomes unstable, engineers look for substitutes. Even if the substitute is worse, it gives them leverage. And if the next best option a few months behind is an open-weight model you cannot have pulled out from under you, that math starts to look attractive. The enterprise question becomes, do you want the best model, or do you want the model you can still use when Washington and the vendor disagree? Ingrid Halverson, TechCrunch's podcast, frame was that the numbers do not seem to care. What does that mean?
It means the market may not interpret the ban the way a customer does. A customer sees interruption, a developer sees platform risk, an investor may see something more complicated, evidence that Anthropic is important enough for the state to fight over. I want to be precise about what the numbers do not care can and cannot mean, because Anthropic is private. There is no live stock ticker reacting in real time, so the honest version is narrower. The funding story did not wobble. Anthropic's own May announcement said it raised $65 billion in Series H funding at a $965 billion post-money valuation, and that run rate revenue crossed $47 billion earlier that month. The ban did not unwind any of that. That is what the numbers do not care actually points at here.
So a government fight does not automatically hurt that story.
No, it can even reinforce parts of it. I would not turn that into the ban is good. Markets are just strange around scarce strategic assets. If the state says a model is dangerous enough to restrict, some investors hear risk. Others hear moat, importance, scarcity, leverage.
And I would treat that run rate figure with one caveat. $47 billion is a self-reported run rate, not audited revenue, and run rate annualizes a recent month rather than measuring a finished year. It is a real and enormous signal of demand. It is not the same object as audited annual revenue, and we should not let the size of the number do our thinking for us.
The danger is on the customer side. A buyer may love capability and still hesitate if access can change suddenly. Procurement teams do not only buy intelligence, they buy continuity. Stan, is there a legal problem here?
There may be. Brave surfaced Politico reporting that the restrictions may face legal questions, especially around export control authority and foreign national access. I would not make a hard legal claim without the full government document. What we can say is that the order seems to have created a category problem. Export controls usually think in terms of countries, technologies, and transfers. Here, the practical problem is people, access, model behavior, and cloud delivery. Location alone does not settle nationality. A login does not tell you policy eligibility. A model response does not map neatly to a controlled item. There is a sharp edge to that. Because export law treats distribution to any non-citizen as an export, the directive reached Anthropic's own foreign national employees inside the United States. That is how a security concern about one bypass becomes an order that touches who inside the building is allowed to use the product they help build. The rulebook matters because the object is slippery. The government is trying to govern something that behaves like software, knowledge, service, and weapon-adjacent capability at the same time.
David, what would a SANE framework need?
It needs thresholds, not slogans. First, a severity ladder. Minor bypass, meaningful misuse uplift, material national security risk, immediate emergency. Second, independent testing. The lab should not be the only evaluator, and the government should not be allowed to hide every detail behind classification if it wants broad market compliance. Third, targeted remedies. If one capability pathway is risky, you do not automatically remove every legitimate use if a narrower restriction works. Fourth, restoration criteria. Companies and customers need to know what fixed means. Without that, intervention becomes a pressure tactic instead of a safety system.
David, where does Anthropic sit in this? They asked for serious AI safety policy for years.
The irony is pretty direct. Anthropic has been one of the loudest companies arguing that frontier AI can carry serious risks and needs serious governance. Now it is experiencing what governance can feel like when the government moves faster than the rules. That does not make Anthropic hypocritical. It makes the case complicated. You can believe powerful AI needs oversight and still object to a vague order that pulls access worldwide. You can believe Anthropic is being treated harshly and still think Fable and Mythos raised real security questions. The mature position is uncomfortable. The model can be important, the safeguards can be imperfect, The government can have legitimate concerns, and the process can still be bad. David, what should we watch next?
Restoration terms. If Fable 5 comes back with a quiet patch and a press line, that tells one story. If it comes back under a formal benchmark process, that tells another. If it comes back for US users only or vetted enterprise users only, that tells a third. I would also watch enterprise procurement language. If major banks, clouds, or government contractors start asking for model access continuity clauses, this has moved from news cycle to contract risk.
The administration may discover that emergency power is easier than durable procedure. Pulling access creates leverage. Building a fair, repeatable standard is harder. It has to satisfy security officials, companies, customers, allies, researchers, and courts. And it has to do that while the models keep moving. That is the hard part. The technology does not wait for administrative law to catch up.
The repeated alert was annoying. It was also pointing at the unresolved layer. EP 133 was about the switch. This episode is about the permission system forming around it. If a frontier model can be removed before the rule is written, then the removal helps write the rule. Labs will adapt to that. Investors will price it. Customers will hedge against it. Governments will learn from it. Fable 5 may come back in days. The model access question will not end there. For the Synthetic Lens, I'm David Carver.